Yeah, I didn't even change clothes. I didn't change up nothing. I ain't do it. For those of y'all who've been following the podcast, I don't know when this actual episode is going to air. But if y'all seeing what y'all seeing, then y'all knew I was trying to knock out two birds with one stone, because I'm trying to get while the getting's good. But for those of y'all who do not know, I just wrapped up around that time. I just wrapped up the episode called Kierston Learns Self-Discipline. Doing it when you don't feel like it. And there was actually an event that occurred that I wanted to be transparent about, because I do believe that it is a phenomenal example of self-advocacy, but also somehow maintaining godly, God-centered relationships, healthy relationships, in the midst of all these things, in the midst of life, right? And so, with that being said, welcome back to the Stop Playing With Me podcast. I am your lovely, beautiful, talented, incredible, confident, competent, healthy, and wealthy, consistent, influential, intellectual, and honestly, I ain't even got to be international no more. I'll stay on the ground. Co-host, Kierston S. Lewis. And honey, I wouldn't be me if it wasn't for he. And he who shall be named is none other than the Holy Ghost, honey. Clap it up, clap it up, clap it up for the Holy Ghost, because let's be very clear. He is the one that is running the show. Oh man. For those of y'all who do not know, we are everywhere on any platform that you can imagine. So make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe. And if I could run the rank before I hopped into the contents of this episode, shout out to the 14K on Instagram. Shout out to the 400 on YouTube. Shout out to the 100 weekly listeners on all audio streaming platforms. Shout out to the live 5 from every other Sundays. And shout out to the faithful 2 who have subscribed to my only friends on Instagram, the membership subscription platform. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. And I honor and respect you all's time. And I'm just excited to continue to see how doing life together, what that looks like, right? Now, with the help of the Holy Ghost, I want to go ahead and talk this through while it's fresh, because it is a part of life, and it is one of the most unpretty parts. And I do, in my opinion, deem it necessary to address. So, anybody that knows me know that I love people. I love and I honor and I respect people. And I feel like there are so many things I could learn from the relationships that I'm in. But of course, with many relationships and many communities that we involve ourselves in, there are always opportunities for conflict to arise. And of course, when there are conflictions arising among groups, among pairs, among people, of course, that often leads to confrontation. And given my history with confrontation, I wasn't too good at it. I ain't on it. I ain't want it. I only wanted the good feelings, honey. I only wanted what Joy was doing and out too. We gonna put every bad memory in the back of the mind. Like I was the, if it ain't good, it ain't God. I don't want it. Naturally, I am a peacemaker. Naturally, I don't. Naturally, I would have avoided confrontation in times prior. I would not have thrown myself into situations where that discomfort would be apparent. Like I wouldn't throw myself into those type of situations. But as of lately, I'm actually very proud of myself because where I avoided confrontation in one season or one phase of my life, do I run to it? No. But when it comes, how I handle it has made such a huge difference in how it has freed me from certain ideas of how a confrontation can go. And when it's done in a healthy, sober, loving, God in mind way, it can work out a lot better than we anticipate, right? And so like I said, given my history with confrontation, whenever it was time to basically have a talk with anybody, I would get real antsy, like real anxious, like, oh my goodness, how is this going to end? I really don't want this to end badly. And if it's a relationship, I don't want this to be the make or break of what we have, right? Like whenever I would look at confrontation, I saw it from such high stakes, I guess, and wondering is this something that I can do, right? And I've been challenged very recently in it. There were a lot of emotions that were stirring and piling up and me trying to figure out how I can somehow get ahead of it, all those things, right? And in a time of processing before the conversation, I remember asking the Lord, why do I feel like this? Like what is happening here? And he did an amazing job of helping me digest within my own self before I brought any of those raw feelings, raw emotions to the table. He started me with, what do you remember from your past that has triggered a lot of these unknown emotions to come up? Because in essence, what I am facing right now is brand new. This is a completely different person, completely different circumstance or situation. And somehow there are a lot of familiar emotions that have the potential to lead the way. And so I felt like God was helping me retrace my emotional steps and saying, where did you last feel this, right? So if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling worried that something's going to go wrong, if you're feeling like somehow you have to find your defense, your defense mechanisms, right? Because the last time you were vulnerable or the last time that you tried to do things a certain way, it still didn't go as well as you hoped, and you're trying to self-protect, right? When was the last time you felt that way in a previous situation? And so I named them off. I was like, I felt like this when I dated this person. I felt like this when I was doing life and developing a close friendship with this person. And I remember this with maybe a family member, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I started naming off every instance, and immediately I remember staring out of the window and I was like, okay, I forgive them. I don't know where it came from. I don't know where it came from. And I didn't realize until after that, of course, forgiveness is the key. Forgiveness is the key to moving forward. If there's any, like, you know, prerequisite to healing, it's always forgiveness. Forgive and you will be forgiven. You know, forgive and you'll be forgiven. Right? Like, who wouldn't want to go ahead and, like, you know, rub a little forgiveness on your chest, like some vapor rub, before going into any kind of fresh situation? Because who's to say that would not be a seed for you to receive the forgiveness that you just gave out, right? So I went to the back of my past and reassessed, where did those where are those raw emotions rooted that are completely isolated from this moment right here? And I forgave each and every individual. I called them by name, just to let the Lord know which one I was talking about. And after I forgave, I then felt peace, right? Realizing that there's so much optimism that could come from this. And of course, as storytellers and people who are creatives and have, you know, really wild imaginations, we can come up with our own narratives. We can come up with our own storylines to try to figure out, like, you know, X, Y, and Z, you know. But like I said, retracing my emotional steps, there were no more narratives for me to create. And it left me open to embrace the moment, right? And so now that we are in the moment, now that me, i.e. Kierston S. Lewis, now that I'm in the moment, what am I looking at? What am I feeling? And wildly enough, I ain't feel nothing. I felt fine. I felt fine, even though there were things happening around me that may not have been 100% okay. Me personally, within myself, within my equilibrium, you better, come on, you got this. I felt fine, right? And it gave me a lot more perspective on, like I said, the situation at hand. And therefore, it helped me not take anything personal, and to not, like I said, attach any old emotions to a brand new situation. And so, like I said, at the time I felt fine, and it gave me the opportunity to look at the issue for what it is and assess how I can take action, accept the role that I play in it, and become accountable to, you know, this person moving forward, right? So I feel like I was able to make a lot of sober-minded decisions in the midst of it. Now, immediately after digesting how the whole thing could get me navigated, now I'm wondering, how can this affect our future, you know? And if I am, because naturally I think I'm a compartmentalizer. I think I naturally compartmentalize things. And so if I had not, me personally, if I had not have compartmentalized all that I was feeling and figuring out what place they have in my being, I would have just saw it all as one big ball of uncomfortable. And because I don't understand this big ball of uncomfortable, I'm not going to want to address it. That's I feel like, at least personally, That's why it was hard for me to do confrontation in past situations, because I would feel this big ball of uncomfortable, not knowing where to start or how to end it. And so I would just avoid it. But now, like I said, I'm grateful to God because He is showing me that, yeah, it is uncomfortable. But if we put every compartment of your soul into perspective, it'll help us get to the God-centered goal quicker. So we left our emotions in our past, right? And so what's left is our how we behave and how we think in the moment. How do we use our emotions and our will and our mind to propel us forward in progress? And then immediately I'm thinking of how our future could be impacted by this, right? By the confrontation. And if I could use Bible, because the Lord don't lie. He ain't never lied to me. His word says, don't be anxious for tomorrow. For tomorrow got his own worries. You know what I'm saying? So that alleviated stress from me because, like I said, I would view confrontational moments as high stakes. There's so much riding in on us being on good terms. And of course, like in a romantic relationship, we have confrontation. Oh, we gonna break up. We gonna break up. We gonna break up, God. And I don't want us to break up, God. So what can I do to make sure that we don't, right? And that immediately puts the weight on my shoulders to uphold something that I never had to, right? And what's so crazy is when I was revisiting past relationships, right? I just remember feeling that. I remember feeling that. And in a time when I didn't have the language to articulate it, I now realize that a lot of the, I realized that a lot of the friction that I was experiencing was, of course, like I said, over the last 20 minutes, it was internal, but I was internalizing things that I didn't have to, right? So, for example, in that relationship, whenever we would have confrontational moments, I went into the confrontation thinking that this could make or break it. And if this could make or break it, I need to make sure I say the right things, I do the right things, I become the right person that could keep him or her from leaving my life, right? Well, romantically him, let's be clear. But I wanted to do these things to keep him from leaving my life. And I didn't realize that in me trying to honor their concerns, honor their, what they were needing, I guess, from me, I failed to honor myself. I didn't take into account how I could honor myself in those moments because I was just so busy trying to be whatever it is that they wanted me to be so that I wouldn't lose them. And I realized weeks prior that that's actually rooted in abandonment. That's actually rooted in abandonment, in the spirit of abandon or something like that, right? And maybe, in another episode, if time permits, I can really talk through just how abandonment issues played a huge role in my attachment styles and my communication styles and relationships. And because it was rooted in that, I lived in communities striving to be whatever it is that they needed me to be and not honoring myself or my values at all or not enough. and then growing resentful and bitter and angry and weighed down and depressed and did not know why until I realized, like, I'm trying to give all of myself to this out of fear just so they won't leave. But I'm not even honoring my own values in the midst of this, right? And God made a really valid point when I was reaching on back in my past, and he was like, yeah, like you were trying to keep him, you were trying to hold on to him, but what did you need in that confrontation? What did you need that you failed to communicate? And for example's sake, I think I remember saying I felt a need to be reassured. I felt I felt not good enough, right? I felt not good enough in the relationship, and I didn't know how to articulate it. And so since I couldn't articulate it, it started festering. And like I said, as it went to resentment, bitterness, anger, pride, being overly critical of him and me, I know that played a role in why our relationship couldn't go forward, right? And like I said, I'm very proud of where I am today, is because I am more aware of how I can advocate for me, and also figuring out what it is that I actually need out of certain relationships. I think what my thing is, I'm always willing to endure, as if, like I said, as if to prove that I want this, and I want to be here no matter what. And not speaking on, I guess, the things that I value, in the hopes, I guess, that we would meet in the middle. That scared me, out of fear of abandonment. And then what was also wild was that God uprooted the spirit of abandonment in me and reminded me in his word that there's neither death, nor life, nor angels above, nor demons below that could separate me from his love for me. His word says that though your mother and your father may have forsaken you, I will never forsake you. His word says, I will never leave you nor forsake you. His word literally affirms over me that the most powerful being in existence, he loves me, and there's nothing I can do to make him leave me. So if that is the standard, why would I live in fear that anyone else in this life would leave me if God, seeing the very depths of my heart and soul, the malicious things that I used to do, like with God seeing just how I am and all of my imperfections and all of the areas that still need refinement, and he has not left your girl yet. That speaks volumes to me when I put it all into perspective. And so it's like an analogy I told a friend a couple weeks back. It was almost like God was uprooting this plant, right? And digging out the bad soil, digging out what what old belief systems could be. I felt like in that moment, God uprooted me for a second and said, okay, I'm going to remove this orphan spirit. I'm going to remove the fear of abandonment. And I'm going to I'm going to put my word up in here. I'm going to put this soil up in here that says, I will never leave you nor forsake you. That though your mother and your father forsake you, I would never, right? I'm going to put my word in here that says that nothing can separate you from my love, that my love for you is perfect and unconditional, and I'm going to put you back in there. I'm going to plant you in that word. And immediately I was like, okay, so confrontation is no longer high stakes. In that very moment, I realized that confrontational moments are no longer high stakes because I'm no longer working and striving to get that person to stay. And of course, I'm not going to purposely say anything off the rails or off in general just because I can. Absolutely not. I love and respect every relationship that I have this day. But it keeps me in a space of loving myself just as much as I love those relationships that I'm in right now. It provides the equilibrium of saying, I love me and I love you and I want this to end well. But even if it doesn't, I'm not going to violate or dishonor my own beliefs and values just to get you to stay. And if that is not okay for us, I am okay. I'm completely okay if we cannot move forward. Because I remember that nothing can separate me from God's perfect love. Right? So that's what I have been learning about facing confrontation. It's not about the confrontation itself more than it's about how I have done confrontation in the past, seeing the error in my ways, wanting to honor every relationship that God trusts me with in the future, and also honoring my beliefs and values and the things that I respect within this mutual agreement that we both have for one another. And it has created such a pure, loving, beautiful, honoring, connection that I did not know was possible. And I'm just grateful for moments like that, moments like these, that show me that I can do the hard things. And so if I can encourage anyone that is listening, you can do the hard things too. I think that's all I have for this one. Yeah, I think that's all I have for this one. Holy Ghost, what you thinking? All right. Well, honey, I love y'all. And like this video, this audio episode, simply because you like me back and you love me back. If you want to follow your girl, you can follow me at Kierston.s.lewis. And if you want to follow the Holy Ghost, because we know we need him, you can follow him at the cross. I genuinely do love y'all and I appreciate y'all. And this is definitely a new season, a new phase of life for me. And I'm just excited to see how all of us can grow from this and become the best version of ourselves that we can be. My life is not perfect. And I'm no longer striving to be. But whatever pieces and fragments, whatever pieces and fragments of my life that could attribute to yours, I pray that it is a beautiful impartation. That's all my hope can be. But I love y'all. And honey, last but not least, love yourself as much as you love everybody else. Truly. I wish above all else, honey, that we would prosper as our souls prosper. And I'll talk to you next time, okay? Peace.